Hello, and welcome to Levels Plus Whenever episode 116. No more spooky shenanigans. We're back to normal. Got a new backdrop. For the most part, I think it's set for a while. I've been a little bit indecisive with things, but I feel pretty good about the way the room currently looks. Grease pieces even behind my head. So, this episode I'm going to get into the 100 male characters that I like the most in video games. And we're going to narrow that down to a top 25. But first, we're going to do some pickups, because I've got pretty much the last major salvo of things that came in over the month of October. So first up is the Unicorn Overlord, what do they call it? Official Design Works. And this is such a cool book. No regrets about importing it. At all. Here's just kind of an example of contents with Ridiel, my favorite character in the game. There's also more breakdowns of the various NPCs, all of the backdrops, the maps, all of the bonus art that came out beforehand, and then there's a whole bunch of stats in the back in Japanese, and an interview. I also really like this cover, just like this group shot of everybody that wraps around. I think that's really cool. Something that I really like is that when you take the dust jacket off, there's a rough draft of the same sketch. So, super rad. I love this game. I'm so glad to get a bigger art book than the one that came with the Monarch Edition that goes into super detail about all of these characters and all the other bonus stuff. Alright, game time. Got 3 games, all appropriate for Halloween, none of which you're going to see before Halloween. I got Alan Wake 2's Deluxe Edition, which comes with the original remaster and all the DLC. Very happy to get this. This was chosen by Paste Magazine as the best game of the first half of this decade over everything else. So I'm like, let's finally get into Remedy's stuff. I've been wanting to do it for a long time. Alright, asterisk time. If you followed this channel, or you followed my writing, you will know that I have beef with Bloober Team, and I have beef with the team that is currently Studio Zero. Why do I have beef with both those studios? Both of them have had issues with dealing with gender, with dealing with sexual orientation, dealing with all of that type of stuff. Plus, Bloober Team has had a really bad run with mental health. So, thanks to all of the things that I have been getting, plus things I have not shown you, I have accumulated quite the bevy of Best Buy certificates. So I got 2 games practically for free. I got them for tax, basically. So it is the latest from those studios, Silent Hill 2 and Metaphor ReFantasia. Reviews have been exceptionally good for both, and I'm genuinely surprised with Silent Hill 2. So I'm going to give them a chance, since I didn't really pay anything for them, and see for myself if Bloober Team managed to give Silent Hill 2 the justice that it deserves as a remake, and if Metaphor can move away from the worst tendencies of that team that they established with the Persona games. I'm very hopeful. That's the pickups for this week. So shall we jump in to the ranking? All right, here we go. with my top 100 men/male characters in video games. And I'm going to be honest, this is a harder list for me to do. Because so many men/male characters really fall into stereotypes I don't like about masculinity. So determining a list is harder for me because there's just so many characters that just fall into those tropes very easily. So we're going to do the same thing that we did with my favorite women, female characters list, which is I'm going to tell you the 100 characters currently on it. We'll cut it down to 25 over time. And I'll talk about those 25 in more detail. So we're starting with Mario from the many Mario games. Saki from Sin and Punishment. Kyle Hyde from Hotel Dusk. Dunning from Hotel Dusk. I don't have better art of him that worked well with the framing. Louis from Hotel Dusk. Wolf from Star Fox, but more from Smash, to be completely frank. Ness from Earthbound. Claude from Fire Emblem Three Houses. Hubert from Fire Emblem Three Houses. Fogado from Fire Emblem Engage. Ike from Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. Zale from The Last Story. Link from The Legend of Zelda. Ganondorf from The Legend of Zelda. Sidon from The Legend of Zelda. Rauru from The Legend of Zelda. Ridley from Metroid. Mike Jones from Star Tropics. Captain Falcon from F-Zero. Shulk from Xenoblade Chronicles. Kirby from Kirby. And that's all the Nintendo characters. From Capcom, we have Kuro from Project Justice. Apollo Justice from the Ace Attorney series. Phoenix Wright from the Ace Attorney series. Strider Hiryu from Strider. Guy from Final Fight / Street Fighter Alpha. Firebrand from the Gargoyles Quest sub-series of games, as well as SBC Chaos and Marvel vs. Capcom. Virgil from Devil May Cry. Sissel from Ghost Trick. Jin Sayatome from Cyberbots and Marvel vs. Capcom. Captain Commando from Captain Commando and Marvel vs. Capcom. Rad Spencer from Bionic Commando, less so Marvel vs. Capcom, at least in terms of design. Mega Man, Proto Man, Dr. Wily, Dr. Wily from Mega Man, Leon S. Kennedy from Resident Evil, Albert Wesker from Resident Evil, Vertigo from Resident Evil, The Merchant from Resident Evil, Ryu from Street Fighter, Vega from Street Fighter, Sagat from Street Fighter, Akuma from Street Fighter, and JP from Street Fighter. And those are all the Capcom picks. We got Bomberman from Bomberman, Regulus, also from Bomberman, and Altair from Bomberman, Bill Reiser from Contra, Soma Cruz from Castlevania, Richter Belmont from Castlevania, Alucard from Castlevania, and Simon Belmont from Castlevania, Tyr from Suikoden, Ryu from Suikoden, and that's all of the Konami / Hudson picks. Moving into Square Enix, we have Cloud, we have Chrono, Cloud from Final Fantasy, Chrono from Chrono Trigger, Frog from Chrono Trigger, 8 from Dragon Quest, Yangus from Dragon Quest, Mori from Dragon Quest, 5 from Dragon Quest, Maxim from Lufia, DS specifically in this case. And now we're into Taito. Well, we were with Taito with Maxim. Nova from Power Blade. And now into Sega with Vice from Skies of Arcadia, Ramirez from Skies of Arcadia, Elaine from Unicorn Overlord. Morard, the lion in the back, from Unicorn Overlord. Sonic the Hedgehog from Sonic. Axel from Streets of Rage. Joe Hisashi from Shinobi. Now into SNK with Rock from Fatal Fury and King of Fighters and Capcom vs. SNK. Iori from King of Fighters, Capcom vs. SNK. Terry from what is he not in these days? Fatal Fury, King of Fighters, Smash, Capcom vs. SNK. My goodness, Terry. And that's just like what I played. We got Street Fighter about to join that lineage. Rugal from King of Fighters, Capcom vs. SNK. K-Dash from King of Fighters. Marco from Metal Slug. Hanzo from Samurai Showdown. Setsuna from The Last Blade. Bandai Namco time with Nightmare from Soul Calibur. Lloyd from Tales of Symphonia. I'm including Paige from Beyond Good and Evil. It's the only Ubisoft game I'm going to let be on this list. And Paige is great, and he might actually make it all the way. But just putting a disclaimer. Adam Drake from Body Harvest. Isaac Clarke from Dead Space. Nolan Strauss from Dead Space. Slayer from Guilty Gear. We're just kind of jumping around companies now. Nago Ryuki from Guilty Gear and Soul from Guilty Gear. Kunio from the Kunio-kun line of games. Sam and Max. Technically, they're two separate characters, but they're so synonymous that it's hard for me to see them as two separate characters. Sly Cooper. Banjo. Banjo-Kazooie. Jason from Blaster Master Zero, specifically. Hebe from Euphoria / Hebereke. Zagreus from Hades. Shovel Knight. Spectre Knight and Plague Knight, all from Shovel Knight. Quote from Cave Story. Theo from Celeste. And the boy from A Boy and His Blob, specifically the Way Forward one. So that is all 100 characters that I've got on this big old PowerPoint. Yeah. So the goal from here is to take this list of technically 101 characters, thanks Sam and Max, and eliminate 76 of them to get to a top 25. And so much like the last video with my favorite women in games, I will go through this whole list and start narrowing it down and tell you why I'm eliminating people to get to that top 25. And when I was going through the whole list, I definitely had quite a few that stood out, but I think there's going to be a few that surprised me along the way. So, okay, so with my favorite women video, I went through and actually broke it down about why I eliminated the 75 that didn't make it to the top 25. I'll do that here. I'll try to keep it a little bit on the succinct side because I'd like this to not be an hour and 15 minutes if I could avoid it. So, let's get down at least to a 50 level and continue going. I'm going to tell you right now that Saki is not going to make it. I like Sin and Punishment Star's successor, and I like Saki's design in Sin and Punishment and in Smash, but I have not played through that game to completion, so I don't feel super comfortable beyond the initial 100 with him. Kyle Hyde is absolutely going to be in the top 25, I can tell you that right now. Dunning and Louie, I think, have potential, so I'm going to keep them for now. I really like Wolf. I think Wolf is a fantastic antagonist, and I love playing him in Smash. So I think he's going to stick around for a bit. Ness is a great character. Claude and Hubert are great characters, but I'm going to go ahead and take Fogato and Ike out of the picture, because if I'm going to pick Fire Emblem characters, it's going to be either Claude or Hubert. Zale and Link and Ganondorf and even Sidon I'm going to keep in consideration in this early cutting period, but Rauru I'm going to go ahead and cut. And Ridley's a great villain, so I'm going to keep him in for now. Mike, I'm going to keep in for now. Captain Falcon is only based on Smash, and I think that has a lot of potential to at least be a top 50. Shulk is possibly a top 25. Kirby, unfortunately, is not. Kirby's going to be cut. Capcom. Kuro has possible edge because I think he's really a great antagonist in Project Justice. So I'm going to hold on to him for now. I really like Apollo, and I really like Phoenix. So both of them are going to stay in currently. Strider's going to be in the top 25. Guy, I'm going to keep for now. Firebrand, nah. Virgil, no. Sissel, I think Sissel can stay for now. Jin, for sure. Captain Commando, possibly. Rad. The thing about Bionic Commando is I like the gameplay and I like his initial design, but I hate what happened to him. So I'm going to allow him to drop off this list. Mega Man and Proto Man can stay, but I'm going to cut Dr. Wily. I'm sorry that I keep calling him that, but I just can't help myself. Leon, Wesker, and Vertigo are staying, but the Merchant can go. I'm going to eliminate down to 2 Street Fighter characters. And if I'm going to only have 2 Street Fighter characters, it's going to be Vega and Sagat. Sorry to everyone else. Except I accidentally cut Sagat's slide, so let's bring him back. There we go. Here's the thing with the Bomberman characters, is that Regulus and Altair I thought were just super sick when I got Bomberman 64 as a teenager back in 1998, 99, whenever that game came out. I still think they're pretty cool designs, but ultimately I'm going to cut all 3 of them because I just don't have that strong of a preference for them as characters. Bill, I'm going to give some consideration to because I love Contra, and I just actually started Operation Galuga, and Steve Bloom voicing him is really helping. Not going to lie there. Out of the Castlevania set here, Simon's my least favorite. I'm going to keep both the Suikoden and protagonist for now. I don't have much with Cloud. I'm going to be upfront. Cloud's in here because I like him in Smash, and the very tiny little bit of Final Fantasy VII Remake I've played so far. That's it. So I don't think he's going to be making it higher. Chrono and Frog, 8 and Yangus, for sure. Mori probably not, but 5, yes. Maxim is here purely on design aesthetic. I love the DS Lufia redesigns. I think they're great. I don't remember hardly anything about his personality in that game. In his Origin game, he was kind of a misogynist. So he's getting cut because his overall legacy is something I just can't support. I like Power Blade. I don't think I like Arnold Schwarzenegger enough to keep him in here, though. Vice and Ramirez and Elaine are all going to stay. I'm going to go ahead and cut Morard. I'll be honest, Sonic's on this list because of the prevalence of Sonic games that I have in my top 111. As a character, I like classic Sonic more than modern Sonic, and I'm glad that classic Sonic can still exist, so he can stick it out for a bit. But with that understanding, I don't really play Axel in Streets of Rage. I play as Blaze or Cherry, so I feel like keeping Axel on this list is kind of not really fair. Joe can stay, though. I really like Joe Hisashi. Rock and Iori and Terry and Rugal are all staying. K-Dash almost I want to keep 2. But I think I'll go ahead and cut him because I've already got 4 other SNK fighting game characters. I don't play Marco either. I did in the original Metal Slug since that was kind of the option. And he was fun in Neo Geo Battle Coliseum. But I play as Fio when I play Metal Slug. Anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and cut him. Hanzo I just think is a sick design from Samurai Showdown, and I played him as a child. But I can't really say that I messed around with him much in the new game when I had it. So I feel like keeping him here is not really right. Setsuna, though, I love. I think he's one of my favorite villains. Nightmare gets to hang out longer, and he's going to probably be in the top 25. Lloyd is going to coast at least into the top 50, but I don't think he's going to get higher than that. Paige, you're lucky. I love you. Adam doesn't really have much of a personality. He's just kind of a military guy. And he's kind of here just to say, I think Body Harvest is an unappreciated game. And I think that what he has on that game's like moveset and all that stuff is pretty neat. But I don't think he's going to be a top 50 character. Isaac and Strauss might surprise you, but I'll explain when we get there. They're staying. Out of the Guilty Gear characters, I kind of threw them in here because I like them, but I don't play any of them. I just think they look pretty sick when I watch them in action. I'm going to cut Soul for now, and when we do our second pass, I'll probably end up cutting another. Kunio, I have River City Ransom experience with Kunio. I don't play him in River City Girls, but I do like his personality a lot in River City Girls, what little there is that I've experienced. And I like his personality in River City Ransom, so I think he can potentially hang out in the top 50 range. Sam and Max are staying, Sly's staying, Banjo can stay for now. Jason gets to stay. Hebe is like so fresh in my mind because I literally just got through a basic run of Euphoria 2. So I'm going to keep Hebe because I think the way that they wrote him in that game is splendid. Zagreus is staying for sure. Shovel Knight, I'm going to keep. I'm getting rid of Spectre Knight, but I do want to keep Plague Knight because I really like the story in Plague of Shadows. Quote, Theo and the boy. I really wish Nightcrawlers didn't get their mitts on this series. It makes it so hard to want to appreciate Quote, and Curly, for that matter, the way that I used to, and Malice. I love those characters. Quote's problem is he's a silent protagonist, though, and it's basically all on what he can do in the game. So I'm going to go ahead and cut him from my favorite list. Theo's a great NPC in Celeste. I think he's wonderful. So he's going to stay. The boy has a hug button. So let's continue going. We got to knock out some more characters. Mario is not one of my top 50 characters. Kyle is. Dunning, I think, is a very fascinating character. And if I'm going to cut Hotel Dusk down to 2, I think Louie's the one that's going to get cut. Although I like Louie a lot. Hardcore slacker vibes. I think Dunning's story is very compelling. I love you, Wolf. I think you're great in Smash, but I don't think you're going to stick it out to a shorter list. Ness might. I'm going to keep Ness. I'm keeping Claude and Hubert. I'm keeping Zale. Cylon's going to get cut. Great supporting character, but not a top choice for me. Link and Ganondorf can stay for now. Ridley gets to stay for now. Mike is a product of the 90s. And there's the moments with him that I think kind of hurt him overall. I even cut him from my Smash video that I just finished putting up. So yeah, I think Mike's gonna sit out this one. Captain Falcon, man, I like him. I like him too much to cut him. Shulk, I like him too much to cut him at this point. Kuro can be cut. I really like these two. I really like Strider. Guy can be cut. Sissel and Jin. Captain Commando can be cut. These two are staying. I can't cut these three. That's too difficult. Bill's getting cut. Oh, both of these are great silent protagonists. They really are. They're really great designs, really well animated, do some really cool stuff. I just don't think I could cut either of them. I can't cut any of them. We're starting to get into the difficult part. Sonic's gone. Joe's gone. Lloyd's gone. Slayer and Nago's gone, and Kunio's gone. Banjo's out. That was a good second round. We're almost to 50. We're at 55. I'm gonna cut Dunning. Captain Falcon, I'm sorry. Of Apollo and Phoenix, I think I like Phoenix overall more. Even though I love Apollo Justice the most, if it was just that one game, Apollo would probably be running off with it. But because Apollo's story gets a little bit convoluted and strange in 5 and 6, I better cut him. Vertigo is one of my favorite bosses of all time, but I don't think that as a character, even though Resident Evil 4 Remake did a fantastic job making him more interesting, I don't think he's got character. I'm gonna cut Sagat. I'm going to cut Chrono, only because he's a silent protagonist and has only like 1 or 2 lines of dialogue in the entire game. And while the game revolves around him, it's the characters around him that I like more. I feel like with Thur and Ryu, that these two characters are actively more engaged with the plot, even though they don't have active dialogue. And 8's another great example of a silent protagonist, and 5 that are actively a part of the plot. Ramirez is a great antagonist, but I don't think it's a top 25. Elaine possibly is. Terry and Rugal are getting cut. Setsuna, as great as I think he is getting cut. Alright, Nightmare is going to continue to hang out. Paige, I think Isaac and Strauss are both up there. Sam and Max I really like, but cutting them would basically be like cutting 2. So I'm going to cut them. Sly's top 25. Jason and Hebe are probably not. Shovel Knight, I think I'm going to cut only because, again, silent protagonist, as cool as they are, and I say they because body swap mode, but I don't think they're a top 25, because we're kind of getting into that range now. I don't think the boy is either. Alright, we got 14 left to cut. I'm gonna cut Ganondorf. I'm gonna cut Ridley. Two fantastic villains, but I don't think their stories in game are as compelling as a lot of the other characters on this list. Like Wesker, Vega. I'm gonna cut Richter, mainly because I think Alucard and Soma have a lot richer tapestries of stories. I'm going to keep Tur and remove Rio. Kind of hurts to do that, but it feels right at the moment. Ten more to go. I'm gonna cut Sissel. I'm gonna cut OG Mega Man. I'm gonna cut Tur too. I'm gonna cut Plague Knight. Cut Link. And now we're getting into super tough territory with the last 5 I have to cut here. I'm gonna cut 8. Of the 2 protagonists, I think 5 has the more compelling story. Going to cut Paige. Excellent supporting character, but not quite top 25 for me. I'm gonna cut Theo. Theo was so close, but ultimately, as great as he is in the story of Celeste, it is ultimately Madeline's story, and he's just supporting it, and he does a great job at that. Just not quite a top 25. Really close. I'm gonna cut Alucard. I think the last character I'm gonna cut is Hubert, as much as it pains me to do so. Okay. That was agonizing. I'm going to sort them off camera, and we'll talk about them in the order that I think they're in. Okay, top 25 time, and I feel really good about this list as I was going through it and making choices. It's like, yeah, I think this is very accurate to my feelings on these characters, and number 1 is Vice of Skies of Arcadia. That should be very obvious. If you've watched my content or read my blogs, I adore Vice. I adore Skies of Arcadia. His actions, his personality, his demeanor, the way he interacts with the player. I think all of those things come together to just create this, I don't want to say perfect, but I want to say casebook example for me personally of how to be. And there's too few characters that manage to do that. And Vice is just the platonic ideal for me in terms of what I want from a protagonist. Strider Hiryu is almost entirely here because of how sick he is. Absolute comparison device. I think Strider is one of the coolest designs of any video game character that has gotten better with age. This is actually his Capcom Fighting All-Stars artwork, which is one of my favorites of his. He's just the perfect cyber ninja. You can't really design one better than this without over-designing it. And that's what I love about Strider, is he's just a great design, top to bottom. His moves make absolute sense for the type of character he is. He's just really sick. And unfortunately, Proto Man at number 3 is kind of in the same boat. In terms of story and progression, he doesn't have a ton. And he kind of gets bodied a bit in a couple of the games. Almost embarrassingly so. But this is one of the reasons why Mega Man 3 is so high on my top 111 list. It's because of Proto Man being like the bee's knees to 10, 11-year-old me. And being unable to shed that connection of he's so cool all these years later. That's why he's still up here. That's why he's so high. I really want him to be in a proper fighting game that really just lets him cut loose with his raw potential of energy that I just feel he has and doesn't get to use. I just think he's so cool. Now for some characters that actually are up this high because they have story and characterization and not just sick cool factor. Kyle Hyde from Hotel Dusk. I really want to play Last Window, so I have a full picture of him, but unfortunately that has not been released in North America, and I have not been able to import a European copy for reasonable prices. So this will only be about his Hotel Dusk appearance, but I think that he is one of the best written male characters in any video game in terms of just being relatable and just capturing that exhaustion of being an adult and having PTSD about things that have happened in his past that he would love to let go, but he just can't. It's very relatable. And the story of Hotel Dusk is just so tightly wound around his drive to figure out what in the world happened to his partner. And why did it lead me to this random hotel in the middle of nowhere? And how he grows as an individual during his stay. I think it's just phenomenal what they did with Kyle Hyde. And I'm hoping that another Code Red collection, not taking off as much as I would imagine Nintendo would have liked, doesn't deter them from considering a Hotel Dusk follow-up in the same fashion. I really liked what they did with another Code Red collection. So, fingers are crossed there. I guess I could go full screen for this at this point, huh? Soma Cruz from Castlevania is number 5. And I think that Soma has a really interesting story in the Castlevania legacy as the reincarnation of Dracula, who chooses, instead of corruption, to fight against the darkness. I think it's a really compelling edge for Castlevania to take that tact, making its villain the hero. And in terms of Arya, at the very least, his design is absolutely off the charts, thanks to Ayumi Kojima's sublime execution of illustration. It's a shame what happened with Dawn, though. But at the very least, both games tell a very great story, and he's got such a cool power with his soul steel that I really just love playing as him. Plus, it's my favorite game to play. Aria Sorrow is my favorite game to play of all of the Castlevania games. Just feels the best. So, between having one of the better stories of Castlevania, as well as the best feel in a Castlevania for me, that's why Soma's so high. Yengus from Dragon Quest VIII is one of the greatest supporting characters ever, with impeccable writing and voice work, and has enough of an interesting story and background, but it doesn't overwhelm the player from the main objective, but it adds a lot when you get to know a little bit more about Yengus and why he's doing what he's doing. His relationship with Red is also fantastic. It's really fun. And he's just got a great sense of humor and has some goofy moves to go along with his more badass stuff, like Axes of Evil being a really sick looking move, and then he's got underpants dance and golden oldies. So Yengus is just, like, to me, the perfect ideal of a supporting character, a secondary character that manages to have everything that you need to enjoy their part in the game, but not enough to overtake the game at the same time. Iori Yagami from King of Fighters is my favorite fighting game character that's not named Strider Hiri. How about my favorite original fighting game character? I just think SNK nailed it. And when Masahiro Sakurai said that Iori was the coolest thing he'd ever seen when he came across him back in King of Fighters 95, I relate. I really do. I think Iori's just sick in terms of just everything about him. One of the greatest fighting game character designs of all time. Absolutely love him. Leon Scott Kennedy from Resident Evil. It's funny how much the remakes have rehabilitated Leon, because if I did this list before RE2 Remake and RE4 Remake, Leon would probably not be on it. RE2, I think default was fine, but RE4 is kind of misogynistic, kind of sexist when it comes to Leon and how he relates to the women in his world. They cut that out of the remakes. He doesn't have it at all. And he's an infinitely better character. He actually lives up to that really awesome, badass secret agent vibe that I want him to be. They couldn't quite get to with the original games, but they nailed it with the remakes and put him into the top 10. He's such a great character now. The voice acting in the new games also phenomenal, and the writing is so good. I think this Leon is easily the best Resident Evil character. That's saying a lot, because I love this series. Vega from Street Fighter, one of my absolute favorite antagonists in all of video games. I have loved Vega since Street Fighter 2. I thought that he was such a distinctive character archetype of a matador ninja with a mask and a claw, with this incredible snake tattoo and just flying through the air and being really intimidating. Just impeccable design by Capcom. One of their highlights of the entire Street Fighter series. I really want to see him in 6, more than the little teasers we've gotten so far. I hope he makes it, because I love this character. Claude from Fire Emblem Three Houses. My favorite of all the male characters in that game. Claude really captures what a rogue playing in fire looks like. He is very cunning, he's very crafty, he's very sneaky. He has millions of plans and strategies running through his head at all moments. He's always thinking about ways out and the ways to get in and do the most damage with minimal impact to himself and his allies. You got also one of the best voice acting parts from Joe Zisha, just killing it with Claude. I adore this character, and I liked him so much that I immediately, after doing Black Eagles, went into a Golden Deer run because I wanted to have more time with him and get to know him better. And I'm glad I did, because I think he's great. It's a shame about Three Hopes, though. It's a shame that Three Hopes, if you go a Bylithless route, he does some strange, out-of-character things to get that plot moving, and it's really bad. But outside of that, I think that Claude is fantastic. Sly Cooper, Sony's neglected franchise that has deserved 20 more sequels than it has gotten. And unfortunately, the two that came after Sly 2 are a little rough around the edges because they're just a little bit too much. Sly 2, though, is perfect. And I gotta say, Sly as a character is such a phenomenal time to just get to know why he ticks, why he's thieving, why he's doing the things that he's doing. You relate to Sly because he's overcome so much to get where he is, to get as good as he is. And again, an incredible job with the voice work, some spectacular writing. He's fun. He's a fun character. Even though he has had some trauma, he's just a delight to play as. And I think that's part of the reason why I think 3 and 4 stumbled a bit, because he's not as much there as he should be. Because his other characters are around. Nightmare from Soul Calibur, one of the sickest villain designs ever executed, and a very interesting villain story. A knight seeking strength seeks a blade that can give him the power to seek revenge for the death of his father, and loses himself in the malice that is Soul Edge. And then, as Siegfried pulls himself out in Soul Calibur 3, the utter hate and disdain for the world that Soul Edge manifests then becomes its own knight. Very cool stuff. I just think Nightmare as a whole is just such a compelling character. And I think that, the problem I think that Soul Calibur has had is that they just haven't been able to keep Nightmare as interesting as possible without having Siegfried tied to it. Because when you get to in the Soul Calibur 4 and 5, Nightmare's design is so out there, it's almost out of this world. And 6 brought it back to Siegfried, I think, in an appropriate way. And I like 6's design as well, but I'm going to be an SC1 fan of Nightmare and an SC2 fan of Nightmare's design for the rest of my days, because I don't think a 7 is anytime soon. Zagreus from Hades. What a great character this is. Supergiant. You made me like a roguelite. Do you know how hard that is? You made me like a genre I absolutely despise, and it's because Zagreus is one of the best characters. Absolutely compelling from start to finish. Design, characterization, voice work, writing, motivations. Everything for Zagreus is perfect. And the only reason he's not higher on this list is because he's in a roguelite, and I don't like the genre that much. So playing the game, I really have to be in the right mind space. But you know what's awesome is that when I have him to come back to, and he's wonderful. So that's why he's up where he is. Elaine from Unicorn Overlord. Probably a bit of a surprise that he's up this high, but I really liked Unicorn Overlord. I liked its characters more than I think a lot of other people did, probably because I didn't go into it expecting the story to be Ogre Battle, like a lot of other people did, and were disappointed. I went into it for the gameplay being like Ogre Battle, but I expected the characters to be more Fire Emblem Awakening levels, and that was a good choice on my part. But ultimately, Elaine is up. I think he's in the top 15. Yeah, he's in the top 15. Because he reminds me a lot of Vice. He has a lot of the same ideals that I look for in a male protagonist. That he is a caring individual that is looking out for the best for his people, ultimately, since he is a prince. Does not want to use his might for evil, instead wants to eliminate evil, and is just a really well-written, straightforward lead that I really related to. I really liked Elaine. I had him in my main party. So if you do that, you have done well, because I usually don't have the main character sometimes in my party because I don't think they're interesting. But Elaine was. He's definitely one of the high points of characterization in Unicorn Overlord for me. Isaac Clarke from Dead Space. This is primarily for Dead Space 2. Because Dead Space 1, he didn't really talk. The remake he does, and I'm looking forward to playing that this October, and it's going to be a fun thing to experience, to see how well Motive did. But Dead Space 2, Isaac was a really, really interesting, thoughtful character that is going through it. He's going through it bad. And I think that the voice acting and the writing was really well handled considering the subject matter, and he's just a good character. He's a really good character. It also helps that his armor is pretty awesome. And the way that they approached his design as a engineer using tools to fight, I think is a really unique idea. So that's why Isaac's in the top 15. Rock Howard. I love Rock in CVS 2. I think Rock is so sick in that game. He's always on my team, almost always. And seeing what he's been doing in King of Fighters 14-15 and the upcoming Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, I am so pumped. It's a shame that his game of origin, he's one of the worst characters in it. But I still like playing him in that too. He's just a great design and does some really awesome animations. I love him throwing his coat over his head and then covering his face as the coat floats over the face of the fallen person. I just think that's such a really awesome ending thing. I just love this character, and he's got a lot of interesting story attached to him too, being the son of geese and all of that legacy, but being taught by Terry. So he's just a really cool character. Frog. Frog is another one of those excellent supporting characters in a role-playing game that I have a hard time not having in my party. And it's a bummer because there's a lot of great Chrono Trigger characters. Frog is just a very stoic knight that is extremely hard on himself because he feels that he let down his country and his best friend. And through the course of the game, you help him recover from that trauma. He's able to forgive himself and forgive even Magus, his arch nemesis, for the greater good of understanding that Lavos is actually the threat. I think that Frog is just a great design, one of Toriyama's best, and is just a really great character all the way around. I enjoy his theme a lot too. He's got a great theme. Zale from the last story. Zale would probably be higher on this list if it didn't take so long for me to get what they were doing with his writing. Zale is so under the influence of Dagran for most of the game that it kind of puts you in a place of he's just not that interesting. That he's just kind of following other characters around. And it's not really until like the last third of the game that changes. And I'm not going to really say anything else in this video because I would like you to see that for yourself. But once you get to that last third or so, Zale is amazing. I love that last third. And I think he's got a great design. I think his voice acting is really good as well. His writing is really good once we get into more nuanced stuff with more individual characters than just the overarching plot. But I really like the last story a lot. I would love to see it come back. And I probably am going to record something in the near future to update my ancient video on the topic. Jin Saitome. This is almost exclusively from Marvel vs. Capcom and not Cyberbots. Jin is such a, for lack of a better term, batshit wild character. The epitome of Capcom's ingenuity and free-for-all development style back when they were doing Marvel vs. Capcom originally. Jin has his mech suit in some of his moves, but not most of them. All of his specials, he doesn't. So they had to come up with some new things, and they just went ham. How about we send his clothes shredding off his body? And they hurt people. And the taunt, he could start rubbing a towel on his back, but you could jam the button really fast, and then he'll catch on fire. And that could become an infinite if you do it right. He'll be turned into a typhoon. He'll grab you and drag you across the edge of the screen. He has a sword that he never uses except for one of his endings. Just Jin is wild, and I love that about him. And he's so fun. Like that's just Capcom, 90s Capcom in a nutshell is Jin Saitome in Marvel vs. Capcom. Blodia in Cyberbots is also fun, but it is not the same thing. 5 in Dragon Quest V has a fantastic story from being a child to an adult to a parent. Even though he's silent, you still get to experience a full life with him, and it's incredibly well paced and well executed with all the supporting characters really helping bridge that silence and make everything relatable. One of the best parents stories in a video game, in my opinion. 5 is the best hero, I would say, out of all the Dragon Quest games. No one has really approached him in terms of the depth and the love that he clearly had put into him when they were making Dragon Quest V. Albert Wesker. I've always thought Wesker was a great antagonist, and he has maintained that over the years. It's a shame one of his voice actors apparently has done some sexual harassment shit, for lack of a better word. But Wesker has always been just so sick. He's one of those villains that you just kind of like, even though you shouldn't, because he's just so over the top, and he's so powerful and so sick looking when he does things. It just makes you like him. It's really amazing how strong Wesker comes off as. And I just think he's fantastic. And RE4 Remake gave us a great look at the future of Wesker, and I love that direction. I can't wait to see where he goes next. Shulk from Xenoblade Chronicles, and then Smash too. I think Shulk's a really great character that has a lot that happens to him, and they're like, he's truly the central point of the story. And he ends up in the other games in interesting ways. But ultimately, Shulk, in his own game, because I haven't played 2 and I haven't got far enough in 3 to even think about doing anything else. Shulk is just a fantastic character with a great moveset, cool costume. He's a scientist, looks at the world with that lens. And you find out so much about him, and he overcomes so much in the game to basically arise above his origins, to put it mildly. And I think he's great. I love Shulk. He's also fun in Smash. Phoenix Wright in the Ace Attorney series. I really like Phoenix. His story is the most consistent, which is kind of why he ended up above Apollo. Apollo's story gets into weird tangents in 5 and 6, when it really felt like he was kind of tightly written in 4 to just go off in these weird directions afterwards. But Phoenix, I think, has a really solid arc from 1 to 3, what happens to him in 4, and then coming back in 5 and 6 as the primary protagonist. He's learns a lot along the way. He showcases that we can become better even if we make mistakes, even if we have odds stacked against us. You can still push your way through, and you can still rise. And I think that's a really good reason why he's named Phoenix. He rises over and over again. And he's just a fantastic character. I really like him. Plus, he's got a goofy edge to him that I also appreciate. Nolan Strauss is number 24 from Dead Space 2. I said that I was going to explain why. I think that Strauss is a very well written and acted character in Dead Space 2, and is very chilling in terms of seeing where Isaac could go if the marker gets too deep. Strauss is a flawed character from the get-go. In the supplemental materials for Dead Space, he's a flawed character from the start. And what happens to him amplifies those flaws. He's ultimately a very weak, cowardly man. And it shows. Even when he's gone through what he has gone through, he is ultimately a weak individual that only strikes when he thinks he has a chance to succeed, and it's always behind the back. So he just makes Dead Space 2 more chilling and scary, because it shows that humans, not just necromorphs, can absolutely upend the world with their greed and their cowardice. And to round out the 25 best male character list, I think Ness from Earthbound's a nice 25. He's just a young boy with psi powers trying to save the world from Gygus. And even though he's a silent protagonist, he's just adorable and steadfast and determined and overcomes a lot of challenges and weirdness to ultimately save the day. And Earthbound is just such a quirky game. I love Ness so much that I have a outfit that I could wear to basically look just like him. I have the hat, the shirt, I have red shoes, I have blue shorts. I need a backpack to match him, but other than that, I just really relate to Ness and think that he's a great example of a silent protagonist done right. Alright, we're done with that, and I feel good finally getting that video up. It's been kind of sitting on my hard drive for about 2 months, waiting to be finished. The problem that I have sometimes is I like to record things when the whimsy strikes. It's just the editing part takes a while. So I've definitely built up things, but we're mostly caught up. We're mostly finished with the backlog. And for episode 117, I actually know what it's going to be. We're going to start celebrating the Switch. We're very close to the reveal of the next Nintendo system. And I feel it's time to start really celebrating the absolute amazing lifeline of this system. It's the little system that could. It's done so much. So we'll be doing a few videos about the greatness that is the Nintendo Switch. And we're going to start with a retrospective of all of Nintendo's Switch releases that are known up to this point. So that will be the next episode. And we'll probably take a little break and do a couple other things and then come back with some other Switch specific memories and such. So thank you for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful set of days until we see each other again. Take care.